Gotta say, Ryuzaki, I never expected you to challenge me to a UFC fight of all things. I figured tennis would be the limit, but this is something else.
There's a first time for everything, Light. Now then, enough talking. Let's give the audience a good show.
Wow, you're quick to get started. It almost seems like you're confident you'll beat me.
He who strikes first wins.
L's physical strength is greatly underrated when it comes to analyzing how strong he is. At a first glance, L looks incredibly weak. His looks and physique aren't anything impressive. He has massive eye bags that are caused by his terrible sleep schedule, and most noticeably, he's quite skinny and has little to no muscle on him. This is because of his terrible eating habits, which are mostly sugar. Due to this, his weight is also just 110 pounds, which is quite underweight for someone of his age. However, despite all the negative aspects of his physique and health, L is quite strong. He's shown abnormal strength since he was only 8 years old, and we get to see the first glimpse of this in the Wami's House short story special. This short story especially shows how L and Watari met and how Watari took care of L during his youth. Before L was around, Watari had established Wami's House as an orphanage for gifted children. However, one day Watari came across an 8-year-old L who was an extraordinary child. Watari took him in and placed him with the other orphans, but came back to discover that L had not only fought but overpowered 6 orphans within the first hour of joining Wami's house. Watari even directly states that he was utterly incompatible with others. He monopolized most of the things he liked because he was stronger. This implies that despite Watari's efforts, it would always result in L fighting and overpowered any orphan in the institution. This alone is an insane feat considering L had just joined Wami's house, and since he is an orphan, this implies he wasn't getting any adequate food or treatment, so he shouldn't even be physically prepared to engage in something like fighting, yet alone fighting and defeating 6 orphans in one go without taking any damage. Assuming that they just aren't standing there and taking the beating, and they try to defend themselves. Either way, it's still quite impressive, especially if he was going around and monopolizing different things he wanted. Depending or not on whether you believe Change the World is canon, L shows his knowledge in Capoeira. He was able to one-shot a Japanese police officer with a Capoeira kick. Those same Japanese police officers are also trained in martial arts, specifically Judo, Kendo, or Karate. So we can see that L has some very strange natural strength to him. But how about Light? Light, despite lacking knowledge in martial arts, is still quite strong in his own regard. Light and L fought in Death Note chapter 38. Light caught L by surprise with a punch that was actually able to send L flying a great distance. Sending a human flying with a single punch should be physically impossible, even if L weighs less than average. There's a common misconception regarding this feat, with people stating it was simply a short distance, or L was just knocked off his feet. Keep in mind that the two of them were chained together, and the distance that L was sent flying was longer than the chain itself. If not for that, Light wouldn't have been pushed towards L. Light and L respectively don't have many feats in terms of speed, for they are simply quality over quantity. The only instance of a speed feat shown for both of them in the manga/anime is during their tennis match. In the anime, it's revealed that both Light and L are not only able to equally verse each other in tennis, but both are capable of perceiving a tennis match in slow motion. L was capable of reacting and hitting Light's tennis ball numerous times, who in turn could also experience the tennis match in slow motion. We know that the tennis match is happening in real time as L's voice reacts to the effort that he is using to hit the tennis ball. In other words, it's not like one of those scenes where L and Light are similarly standing on opposite buildings or falling off them while it's in deep thought. This slow motion is actually occurring as the tennis match is progressing. L's stamina is not to be underestimated, as even as a malnourished orphan, he was capable of fighting against 6 other orphans. It's unknown how long this fight went for, or even if there was a fight, as we only get bits and pieces. What we know is that as soon as L entered the orphanage and was left alone by Watari, the other orphans tried to cuddle him, and this resulted in L starting a fight. We can assume the fight didn't last long. We can assume that the fight didn't last too long, as if it went for a long period of time, L should have realistically sustained some damage. It certainly wasn't over quickly, as L at this time had no knowledge of martial arts, but to be able to engage in a strenuous activity such as combat that is taxing on a person's stamina, even more so for L in his case due to his circumstances, is quite impressive. L later goes on to become the British junior champion at an unknown age, but we can assume it was during his youth. To become a skilled tennis player, let alone a champion, you need to have enough stamina to be able to run around the court for long periods of time, often hours. To have this much athletic talent at such a young age just goes to show how underrated L is. Despite being out of practice, he was still able to give Light an extremely difficult match, which although it ended in his loss, was still insane. that he was able to keep up with a much more athletically fit opponent, considering L is malnourished. Even during the end, Light was struggling to breathe, and L looked as if he had barely broken a sweat. Light also has experience in tennis, as he won his high school's national junior tennis championship at 12 years old. And as previously discussed with L, it takes an above average amount of stamina to be a skilled tennis player, yet alone a championship winner. Though he was more tired of the two in his match against L, he was still able to use his experience to win. Light's most impressive feat in stamina, though, happens at the end of Death Note in the anime version. Upon being exposed as Kira, he attempted to write down Nier's name, but was stopped by Matsuda, who shot him 5 times. Once in the hand, and the other 4 bullet wounds were either in his side or aimed at his shoulder. Despite his life-threatening injury, he was still able to get up thanks to Mikimi's suicide, and run an incredible distance from the Yellow Box warehouse to a completely separate warehouse. Based off Ryuk's dialogue, it's implied that Light would have actually survived, as Ryuk said he would have been thrown into prison for a long time, and he wouldn't want to wait, and so Ryuk killed him. The thing that's most impressive about this, though, is that Light outrun 2 police officers, despite his injuries. Yes, you could argue Light getting a head start due to confusion and shock from the others aided him, but Nier himself stated that he wouldn't go far with those wounds. Nier was somewhat correct as Light's body was found, but realistically speaking, Matsuda and Aizawa should have been able to catch up to Light with ease. Japanese police officers are trained to ensure that they are at peak condition. This includes being taught in Aikido, Karate, Kendo, and overall numerous different physical examinations, with running being one of them. Despite that, Light was still able to outspeed them, despite not being in peak condition. L's durability is not to be underestimated, as he took a punch from Light off guard. That very same punch sent him flying across the room. Despite being caught off guard with such a powerful punch, he was still able to counterattack with a kick to Light's face. More impressively, however, was the fact that L, who was not off guard, was able to tank a full power punch from Light straight to the face. Light's durability is also not to be underestimated, as he took a Capoeira kick from L straight to the face. Although it took him a bit of time to get up and recover, L's attack was not able to knock him out at all. Speaking of Capoeira, L is proficient in martial arts, specifically Capoeira. Capoeira is a fast and versatile martial art that is historically focused on fighting when outnumbered or at a technological disadvantage. The style emphasizes using the lower body to kick, sweep, and take down their aggressors, using the upper body to assist those movements and occasionally attack as well. It features a series of complex positions and body postures that are meant to get chained in an uninterrupted flow to strike, dodge, and move without breaking motion. He learned this after getting kicked by Naomi Masura at the end of the BB Murdercase novel. He displays his proficiency in Capoeira with the kick he throws at Light. He also uses it again in L, Change the World, when he one-shots the Japanese police officer despite being handcuffed. Light has no sort of experience in hand-to-hand combat and has only ever fought L. So after comparing one another in all these categories, who wins? Well, strength would have to go to L, as he has far more feet and better showings compared to Light. Light's punch was impressive and easily above average for a human, but keep in mind L was off guard and still got up with ease. L then even states Light used a far stronger punch with all of his strength. This same punch would be stronger than the previous punch that he threw, which caused L to be sent flying. Despite the increase in strength, it didn't matter as L simply tanked it and counterattacked. That punch is Light's only noticeable strength feat. Compared to L, who one-shots a Japanese police officer. That very same Japanese police officer is experiencing multiple styles of hand-to-hand and restraining people, fought and defeated 6 orphans all at the same time who attempted to hug him within his first hour of joining Whammies. They were also older and physically bigger than L. The difference between the two is obvious when comparing L's feat to Light's punching feat. Because of this, L takes strength. Now for speed, this category is a bit difficult between the two of them as they seem to be evenly matched, with L just barely losing to Light at the very last moment. It's unknown if L was actually going all out or holding back, but Light seemed to definitely be trying. However, tennis isn't all about speed, as tennis relies on stamina and employ high-intensity interval training to have success in games. This is because of short distances, over which they are required to accelerate and de-accelerate on an intermittent basis. They were also both perceiving the tennis match in slow motion, with L being capable of reacting and hitting Light's tennis ball numerous times and vice versa. Because of this, I'm going to say that the two of them are equal in speed. Even if L did lose the tennis match, it wasn't because Light was faster, it was simply because in that moment, Light's serve was more accurate and precise than L could account for. Without a single doubt, Light Yagami takes stamina, Surviving 5 gunshot wounds to various parts of the body is one thing, but being able to get up and have enough strength to slide open a steel door and proceed to outrun 2 trained Japanese police officers is something else. This isn't to downplay L at all, as for someone of his physique, his stamina is quite impressive. This is to be expected though, as he's proficient in martial arts and was the British junior tennis champion. That and having the stamina necessary to fight and defeat 6 older orphans despite being malnourished is impressive in his own right, but overall, Light Yagami takes stamina. As for durability, it would have to go for L, as he was able to tank Light's strongest punch without blinking. This punch was stronger than the one that caught him off guard and sent him flying across that room. Despite that, L was able to get up, focus, and fight Light as if nothing happened. Though Light being able to get back up after receiving a capoeira kick from L is also quite impressive, especially since it's a leg. Martial arts would obviously go to L due to Light's lack of experience. This would make the score 4-2 in L's favour, though if you believe including martial arts as a category is unfair, considering Light isn't knowledgeable in it, then we can take a point off from L. Even so, this would still make it 3-2, which means in a UFC fight between L and Light, L would win this fight with mid difficulty. If we include martial arts as a category, or with extreme difficulty if we don't count martial arts.